Europe called it savage, yet they couldn't build what Benin built. They called Africa the Dark Continent. But in the 1400s, while much of Europe was shrouded in dirt roads and chaos, an African city was gleaming with sophistication, technology, and order. A city so well planned that European explorers stood in awe. A city with streets laid out in precision, clean and organized, centuries before London even had streetlights. This was Benin City, the beating heart of the Edo Kingdom, and one of the greatest urban marvels the world had ever seen. The heart of a kingdom. Long before the British Empire dreamed of colonizing Africa, the Kingdom of Benin in what is now southern Nigeria was already a symbol of power, organization, and innovation. At its center stood the magnificent Oba's Palace, a complex made of red earth, adorned with ivory, bronze, and intricate carvings that told stories of warriors, kings, and gods. The Oba, the sacred ruler, governed through a highly organized system of chiefs, councils, and guilds. Nothing in Benin City was left to chance. Every road, every building, every marketplace had a purpose. It wasn't chaos, it was genius. Walls greater than the Great Wall. One of the most astonishing achievements of Benin City was its defensive walls, a marvel of ancient engineering. The city was enclosed by massive earthworks, stretching an estimated 16,000 kilometers in total length. That's longer than the Great Wall of China. Built entirely by hand, these walls formed moats, barriers, and ramparts that protected the kingdom for centuries. In fact, the Guinness Book of Records once described them as the world's largest earthwork carried out prior to the mechanical era. European explorers who visited Benin in the 15th and 16th centuries were stunned. They wrote of a city larger, cleaner, and better organized than any city they had seen in Europe. Even today, remnants of these walls still weave through the forests of Nigeria, silent witnesses to Africa's architectural genius. Urban planning ahead of its time. Benin City wasn't just a fortress, it was a masterpiece of design. Its streets ran in perfect straight lines from the palace outward, like the spokes of a wheel. Each district had a function, for craftsmen, traders, priests, and soldiers. There were drainage systems, wide boulevards, and strict sanitation rules that kept the city clean and healthy. Meanwhile, London in the same century was still struggling with open sewers, disease, and narrow, filthy streets. Visitors from Portugal wrote that Benin was so well governed and so well built that none of the European cities could rival it. The bronzes that spoke. And then came the art, the Benin bronzes, some of the most sophisticated metalworks in human history. These brass and bronze plaques told stories of the Oba's lineage, of battles fought, of gods worshipped. They were not primitive trinkets. They were intricate, scientific, and masterfully detailed. So advanced, in fact, that European scholars centuries later couldn't understand how Africans could have made them without modern tools. Today, many of these treasures lie in European museums, taken during colonial raids, while the people of Benin continue to fight for their return. The fall of a great city. But as with many African civilizations, greatness drew envy. In 1897, the British launched what they called a punitive expedition. They invaded Benin, burned the city to the ground, exiled the Oba, and looted thousands of its bronzes and treasures. What Europe couldn't build, it destroyed. The fire of colonization tried to erase centuries of African brilliance, but Benin's legacy refused to die. Legacy and lessons today, Benin City still stands. Quieter, smaller, but unbroken. Its people still honor the Oba, uphold the traditions, and carry the memory of a civilization that once led the world in design, governance, and art. And now, the world is beginning to wake up. Historians, universities, and even museums are rewriting what we were told, recognizing that Africa was never primitive. Benin City is living proof that civilization did not begin in Europe. It flourished in Africa. So the next time someone says Africa had no cities, no innovation, no history, tell them about Benin City. Because once upon a time, in the heart of West Africa, stood a city more advanced than London. A city built by Africans for Africans that changed the world's idea of civilization. If you're proud of Africa's true history, don't just watch, share it. Hit that like button, subscribe to AfriFacts, and turn on notifications for more stories that prove Africa was and still is a land of greatness. Because the world must remember, Africa built wonders long before the world gave it credit.